Welcome to PaleriderTV. Got a little article here I came across earlier, and it's a good one. It's a good one. It's from Freight Waves. You go check their article out there, freightwaves.com. And it's a good article about Robert Palm over there at Truckers Final Mile, all the good work he's doing, and everything else. So, a lot of the carriers won't pay to get the bodies back home. So, while recruiters are always searching for skilled truck drivers and using sign on bonuses and paying incentives to attract drivers to come to work for their truck companies, there's little mention of what happens to the expenses and who pays for them if the driver suffers a medical emergency or dies in a fatal crash while under a load. That's because there are no federal mandates by the FMCSA requiring trucking companies to pay the expenses when a driver who is often thousands of miles from home dies on the road for any reason, unless there's a contractual agreement in place. Although owner operators say they know all too well the financial hardship that a death on the road could cause their families, some independent contractors leased to large fleets and company drivers say they wrongly assumed the carriers would pay their expense if they died on the road. Robert Palm, my man Robert. Robert's a good guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him several times at different truck shows and different trucking events. He's a good guy. He's a 43-year trucking veteran and the founder of Truckers Final Mile. Says he's heard just about every excuse in the book, while some executives of small carriers and mega fleets can't or won't pay the cost to help bring a deceased driver home. I'd like to hear some of those excuses. And with today's freight environment, some owner operators and small to mid-sized fleets are operating on razor thin margins, which puts an additional strain on nonprofits like Palm's organization to pay the expenses to get a deceased truck driver home to their grieving family. While some trucking companies are quick to retrieve their equipment and freight, the carriers often send grieving families to Truckers Final Mile, which relies solely on donations to deal with the logistical arrangements and expenses of these tragedies. Palm, who runs a charity from the cab of his truck, counts on other volunteers from the trucking industry who are passionate about the mission they embarked on nearly 9 years ago. Over the past few years, nonprofit organizations like Truckers Final Mile have struggled to stay afloat. First, it was a pandemic related cancellation of in person trucking events in 2021, and now it's falling freight rates and economic uncertainties in the industry because some donors have had to rethink their budgets. I interact with CEOs of companies that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, operate brand new equipment, but can't or won't fork over $2,500 to bring their deceased drivers home. Palm said in a previous interview with FreightWaves. But then these same CEOs will turn around and spend thousands on recruiting ads and photo ops to show how well they treat their drivers. It's unacceptable. And Mr. Palm, I agree with you 100% right there. Yes, sir. While he never names the carriers, Palm doesn't mince words when he and other members of his group chip in funds from their own pockets to pay transportation expenses for deceased drivers of some of the mega fleets in North America that posted billions of dollars in revenue last year. I had a company owner tell me one time that his deceased driver was his best driver, and he thought of this driver like a son. Palm told Freightways. He noted that the owner's fleet had the newest trucks on the market, and they were decked out to the max in chrome and chicken lights. If this driver's like his son to the owner, why aren't you calling Truckers Final Mile to pay the expenses to get him home? Palm said. If you send a driver out on the road to work, but you can't afford to get the driver home if something happens, or to help his family that sacrificed everything to help you build your successful business, You shouldn't be in my industry. Thank you, Mr. Palm. I agree with that also. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics website states that professional truck drivers have one of the highest rates of injuries and illnesses of all occupations because of the potential for traffic crashes. Truck drivers also have one of the highest rates of fatalities of all occupations. I agree with that one. In 2022, Palm's charity helped families of about 90 drivers, including many military veterans who went into the trucking industry after serving their country. The past few years have taken a toll on Palm and a small group of volunteers who work behind the scenes with medical examiners' offices to get death certificates, coordinate arrangements with funeral homes, and speak with grief stricken families. Palm said his group often makes 14 or more phone calls to arrange transportation and navigate government red tape. In some cases, it can drag the process out for weeks or even months for all the toxicology and other reports to be completed so a medical examiner can issue a death certificate. There's a lot that goes into all that, that's for sure. And these people are doing it voluntarily. Awesome. These families often can't access funds or insurance policies without the driver's death certificate, so we know how important our assistant is to help them. If we call to help, we don't ask about insurance policies or if a GoFundMe has been set up to help cover costs. We don't care. Good on them if people are willing to help them financially. They just suffered a huge loss. Some carriers have internal programs at work to get their deceased drivers home. However, Palm said those drivers must enroll and agree to have weekly deductions taken out of their pay to cover those just in case transportation costs that they will hopefully never need. However, driver orientation with a new carrier can be overwhelming, and sometimes those critical boxes go unchecked, or families assume the truck companies are responsible to get their loved ones home if tragedy strikes on the road. You would think that they would. I don't know. It's crazy. Palm said he would like to see the industry come together and treat us deceased truck drivers like the military provides for its soldiers. He would like industry stakeholders to create a policy so there's no gap in coverage if you leave a company and immediately sign on with another carrier. There you go. One situation stands out to Palm, a veteran who served in the 101st Airborne Division of the U.S. Army from 1975 to 1980. A driver who served 2 tours in Afghanistan decided to become a truck driver. After spending several years hauling dry freight, this driver decided he wanted to pull tankers and haul hazmat, but the company he was with for 6 or 7 years didn't have tankers. To advance his career and boost his pay to provide for his family, he signed on with a new tanker company. The driver was told on orientation that his benefits were kicking after 90 days. This 2 hour military, two tour military veteran died on his 82nd day in his truck. Oh, man, so sad. I called his old company and his new company both said he didn't qualify for any benefits, so we helped get this man home to his family. That shouldn't happen in an $800 billion industry. I totally agree, Mr. Palm. You're a good man there doing what you do. So it's crazy. You can turn off. There, that's better. But anybody want to help Truckers Final Mile? It's a tax deductible donation, I believe. So donate whatever you can, help get loved ones home, uh, truckers home to their loved ones that passed away in the truck. There's another organization called Wings Back Home that offers a kind of a prepaid funeral service. And each plan, they have different plans that you can purchase. And on the purchase of one of these plans, they donate so much of that to Truckers Final Mile. So check out truckersfinalmile.org or wingsbackhome.com. So that's crazy. But Mr. Palm's a good guy. In fact, he's having some issues right now that I won't get into. He just needs some help himself right now. So Go check out truckersfinalmile.org and help out if you can. Get these deceased drivers back home to their loved ones. Because apparently, a lot of the mega fleets or anybody, any carrier, small, large, medium, mega, whatever, are not spending the money to get drivers home if they pass away. But you can bet they'll get that truck back and you get that freight delivered, and don't worry about getting the driver back home. So that's a good article. Some of my 2 cents put in there, and I appreciate it. So I appreciate everybody watching. Everybody have a good day. Stay safe.